The year is 20X5, and you are Samus Aran, a bounty hunter sent to destroy the leader of the space pirates before they can multiply the incredibly dangerous life form they'd stolen from a deep space research ship. The Federation calls this life form Metroid, and they call you He. Yeah, you ever read the manual for the original Metroid? The space hunter chosen for this mission is Samus Aran. He is the greatest of all the space hunters and has successfully completed numerous missions that everybody thought were absolutely impossible. He is a cyborg. His entire body has been surgically strengthened with robotics, giving him superpowers. Even the space pirates fear his spacesuit, which can absorb any enemy's power. But his true form is shrouded in mystery. Of course it is. I mean, that's the point. It's a nod and a wink to those who know, and for those who don't, it's setting them up for a surprise later. This is the story of how Nintendo invented the gender reveal. Stop, sorry, no, this video isn't actually about that. Hi, I'm Bill, and this is a video about how Nintendo, maybe kind of a little bit, invented the survival horror game genre, maybe. Sorry, okay, carry on. Metroid was directed by Satoru Okada and Masao Yamamoto, music by Hirokazu Tanaka, scenario by Makoto Kano, and character design by Hiroji Kiyotake, Hirofumi Matsuoka, and Yoshio Sakamoto. All of them big fans of the 1979 Ridley Scott film Alien starring Sigourney Weaver. The similarities are all over the place. There's the boss named after the director, Mother in Alien and Mother Brain in Metroid, and the Metroids themselves being parasites in larval form that attach to your face. You know what, it's October, so I'm going to show you the clip, but I'm telling you in advance so that it's not a jump scare. Look away now if you want. But most of all, what the designers of Metroid aimed to capture was the atmosphere of Alien. The feeling of being alone in space with strange, unknown creatures that could leap out at you from the darkness at any time. They wanted to create a game about loneliness, uncertainty, isolation and desperation. And all they had were 8 bits. The uncertainty starts with the manual. It wasn't just lying to you about Samus's gender, sorry, spoilers. You're probably aware that Metroid was revolutionary by needing you to go left instead of right at the start to progress. Did you also know that the manual encourages you to go right? Look at this map in the manual. See the big arrow pointing right? Notice how all the screenshots on the next page show Samus going right. It's a conspiracy. They're all in on it. We're through the looking glass here, people. The manual tells you what the enemies do and what the items do and all that gameplay stuff, but outside of this, the manual is deliberately untrustworthy. After my first playthrough of Metroid, I could draw you a more helpful map than this. Oh yes, about that, I first played Metroid last week. You saw my Zelda video, right? Well, Metroid draws a lot of comparisons to Zelda, and I wanted to play this game as closely as possible to how Nintendo expected kids would play it in 1987. I had no walkthrough, I had no map. All I had were tips I vaguely remembered, and a few online friends to help me figure it out. So for American viewers, effectively my memory was Nintendo power, and viewers of my stream were my schoolyard chums. Do Americans say chums?
The rules for this, by the way, are no spoilers, but by all means offer hints and tips. And, you know, whether I'm going the right way or whatever.
I got into Metroid with 0 mission, and I always assumed there was just no reason to play the original anymore when you've got this awesome, much more approachable remake. But this is a very different experience. One of the viewers of the stream put it best.
Zelda is definitely more puzzly, but it's also smaller and more clearly defined. Metroid is hard to figure out where you are. Zelda is hard to figure out where to go. That's really well put.
Zelda is about figuring out where to go, and Metroid is about figuring out where you are. The deliberate lack of a map, both in-game and in the manual, is about that feeling of uncertainty and unease and loneliness. So why does the first bit of music when you start the game sound like this? Tanaka knew what he was doing. The Brinstar music is perfect. First, it's part of the Misdirection. It's saying, hey, we're going on a jolly video game adventure. The music in the other areas of the game is much more ominous. Secondly, it is an adventure. You're a big space bounty hunter off to fight aliens and you're getting pumped. Thirdly, this is exactly the music you want to hear when you've just emerged from Norfair having beaten Ridley. The game has a lot of backtracking, and the first area, Brinstar, acts as a kind of central hub. Even the map in the manual tells you that much. That means that when you've defeated one of the mini-bosses and powered up, you come back and you hear this music.
Feels good hearing this music after killing Ridley, doesn't it? This is good after killing Ridley music.
Tanaka said specifically that he wasn't inspired by Alien's music, but that he was fascinated by the senses of urgency, tension, and uneasiness that dominate the whole movie. The iconic item room music is dripping with this atmosphere. Do you hear that? That's not just beeps. That's ambient sound on a NES. It's simple, but that's what it is. Just like the sound design in Alien, where you hear alien-like sounds throughout the film, and you don't know if it's the creaking ship or the alien itself. What is that noise in the item room music? Well, the next time you hear a sound like that is in Turian, where the space pirates are multiplying the Metroids. Those little rising beeps, deep and muffled in the item room but reaching higher pitches in Turian, are telling you there's something in the air ducts, and it's getting closer. The biggest way, though, that this game leans into survival horror, in my opinion, is also its most frustrating aspect, and it's right here. You start with 30 health. You die, you come back with 30 health, regardless of how many energy tanks you have. And you're not restarting anywhere comfortable. This game doesn't have cosy little save rooms or recharge stations where Samus is safe from the horrors lurking outside. Why would it? This world is hostile. You spawn with 30 health and you have to go find more, and there are two ways to refill your health in this game. You find an energy tank, or you kill some enemies for energy balls. There are 8 energy tanks and they're hidden out of the way, and once they're gone, so that's not usually a realistic option for replenishing your health. 30 hit points is rarely enough to go find an energy tank anyway. You have to absorb your enemy's power. As an aside, do you remember in the lead up to Doom 2016 when id made a big deal about the glory kills and how it was this great risk-reward mechanic where you had to get in close and personal with your enemies to replenish your health when you'd rather run away and hide, and it was revolutionising the health system in the games? Well, the date on this box says 1987. And if you want to know why the box looks like this, or small and adorable, go check out my video on how Nintendo came to Europe, and like and subscribe on your way. This 30 health is a key element to the game feeling like a survival horror, and I get it, I totally do, but man, in practice, this is such a pain. What you're watching here is a sped up montage of all the times I farmed for health pickups while playing through this game. The game's well designed for this. It's got these points where weak enemies spawn continuously, and if one drops health, another won't spawn until you've picked it up. Good design, except for that if. You can see here the drop rates are really low, and for a while I was sure that they just stopped dropping health after a certain number.
I still think they stopped giving you health after a while, I'm not sure. It sure feels like it.
It turned out I was right. The game decides randomly when you enter a room how many pickups it's going to give you, and after a while you have to leave the room and come back in if you want more. I played this game for 5 hours, and 54 minutes of my playtime was doing this.
Doing this, I feel, adds nothing to the game. Just takes time out from when I should be playing the game.
This game is not kind to you in the way that modern games are. It's harsh and unforgiving, and that's the point. Other developers are doing this kind of thing now, hello From Software. But you wouldn't see Nintendo being this outwardly hostile to its player base. Misleading them, taking away tools they'd expect to have like a map and easy health refills, and letting them throw themselves into pits that they couldn't possibly get out of.
I feel like there should be something down here. Is there really just nothing down here? In this bit here, there is one square that I can stand on that will let me jump back up, and I can't remember which square. Yeah, that was it, we did it! Well, I mean, we're not out yet. Oh, come on! Love you, 80s Nintendo. We're all calm. God damn it. You stay there for a sec. Come here, friend. Come here, friend. Come here, friend. No, that... Okay, come here, friend. No. Okay, come here, friend. Okay, you know, I don't think he's coming back. You know, getting over it. Eat me.
These guys in Nintendo R&D in 1986 hate you, and they want you to know it. But again, that's the point. Games are not films. You're not just the audience, you're also a participant. This is immersive media. And for it to work, Satoru Okada has to treat you the same way that Ridley Scott treats Sigourney Weaver.
Mother! The ship will automatically destruct in T-5 minutes.
I loved Metroid Zero Mission, but I didn't feel isolation, I didn't feel desperation, I didn't feel dread. There are 3 Metroid games that made me feel dread, and they are the first one, the second one, and Dread. If you've played it, you know the feeling when an Emmy sees you. That game holds your hand and gives you the fear, but it's really the only Metroid game that does. The first 2 really just dump you on a planet and let you figure it out yourself, and they're the 8-bit ones. Is that a coincidence? People have hacked maps into Metroid 1 and 2, so it is technologically possible. But is it technologically possible to convey the atmosphere of Alien on an 8-bit NES? No, not really. But Nintendo uses every trick up their sleeves to get as close as they can while still keeping it family friendly, up to and including tricking the player. But they don't do it because they hate you, they do it because they love you. Yoshio Sakamoto loves you. The obscurity in Zelda and the obscurity in Metroid are part of the design, so you can figure out where you're going or figure out where you are, and that's not just part of the challenge but the emotional centre to these games. I've read so many comments on my Zelda video about families who played Zelda together and the feeling they got when they beat it together. Stories of kids hugging each other, jumping for joy with their parents. It's all in those comments, once you get past some of the more annoyed ones. And that's fine, by the way, you're welcome to disagree. But I loved reading people's memories of playing Zelda with their friends and family, and that's in the end what made me excited to track down a copy of Metroid. I wanted to see if I could capture just a little bit of that feeling. But instead of friends and family, I had chat.
So close, tasty, tasty E-tank. He's the flappy guy from the other side of the wall, the one I just killed. Yeah, I realised that as I killed him. Hey, flappy dude. Come here. Hey! Okay, now we kill flappy dude. Thanks, flappy dude. Forever in our hearts.
I'm not one for expressing my emotions very loudly, but as they say in Britain, mate, I was buzzing.
Time bomb set, get out fast. Come on. Did we save the animals? You fulfilled your mission. It will revive peace in space. Cool. But it may be invaded by the other Metroid. Pray for a true peace in space. Okay, everyone pray. Pray for a true peace in space. GG's. We did it. Couldn't have done it without you, chap. Oh, that was really lovely. That was just a nice way to spend an evening. 5 hours, is that a good clear time?
The most fun to be had in video games is the stories you get out of them. If you stay away from spoilers, from guides, and find your own way, perhaps with a little help from loved ones, and that includes chat, your story is your own. And the apparent hostility from the developers, their unwillingness to help you, goes a long way toward making that happen. If they're not holding your hand, they're not leading you down a specific path. You get to find your own, and maybe it was the intended one and maybe it wasn't. My personal story of Metroid involves spending the first hour climbing out of pits and accidentally finding the screw attack before the long beam.
New bit, and it's that beepy music that makes me happy. Objects, what do we get? Give me object. Ooh. Screw attack. That's a good one.
That's the fun of obtuse, open world games. But is Metroid really the first survival horror? Well, I think that's what it's going for, but it doesn't quite reach it. Partly because Nintendo was making games for kids, and if you want to look at this game as survival horror for children, it's not actually all that far off. These guys wanted to make a game loosely based on Alien, and part of what makes the Alien scary is that the crew are trapped alone on this huge ship where they could go off in any direction, and so could the alien. It's big and it's open, but it's claustrophobic at the same time. I'm not saying they made Metroid non-linear because of Alien, but I am saying if you were going to make a video game and your only inspiration was Alien, well, you'd probably come up with a game where you're alone in a claustrophobic environment, with limited resources, where an alien could jump out at you anytime with no idea where you're going or where you are. The first true survival horror game would come 3 years after Metroid, with Capcom's Sweet Home releasing for the Famicom in 1989. It was only released in Japan, probably in part due to the gruesome imagery, because this is a genuine horror game for grown-ups. And it did pretty well in Japan. Which is good news for horror fans, because Capcom would follow it up with the whole Resident Evil franchise. But, just like Metroid, Sweet Home relied on gameplay to create the atmosphere just as much as graphics and sound by setting it in an open world where you didn't know what was coming, forcing you to backtrack after gathering items and limiting the availability of health pickups. Later Metroid games would lose a lot of their atmosphere when they became more friendly to the player. You wouldn't have a Metroid game without health and ammo recharge stations and an in-game map these days. I think that's for the best though. Metroid has found mass appeal in today's much larger video games market by becoming more accessible. And if Metroid games aren't selling, well, we're not getting new Metroid games. Plus, outside of Metroid, Metroidvania is a massive genre, and very popular with indie game developers. You can find a Metroidvania to suit your mood, your preferred difficulty, and really whatever it is you want to get out of the game. And Metroid keeps the genre alive in the mainstream. There's nothing wrong with that. The big mass market games have to be successful in order for the small, niche, retro-style indie games to be worth making. You don't need me to tell you about Hollow Knight, Axiom Verge, Cave Story Plus, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Gato Roboto, Shantae and the Seven Sirens, and those are just the ones I've played. Carrion looks good too, if you fancy more of a retro, horror-themed Metroidvania, and it doesn't have an in-game map. It surprised me actually how much of the Metroidvania experience was right there from the start. We didn't have Metroidvania as a word until 2001, but the genre had been sitting there fully formed since 1986. The original Metroid has everything that makes a Metroidvania, from the hero's humble beginnings to the power fantasy endgame. And I'm not just talking about Samus. I enjoyed Metroid so much that after my stream I immediately went and played it again. And again. I restarted a couple of times and refined my route, so the next time I finished it, this was the ending I got. Metroid's a lady?
She's a lady, all right. A beautiful lady.
Metroid gave you a different ending depending on how quickly you finished the game. Get under 1 hour, and Samus is in her bikini at the end. Not great for one of gaming's earliest female protagonists in terms of representation, of course. Actually, it would have been much funnier if Konami had done it with Alucard. But just the fact you get a different picture at the end is the game saying to the player, hey, do it again. Faster. Metroidvania games have always encouraged speedrunning, even before speedrunning was a thing. The reason is that Nintendo aimed to give the player the same experience they gave Samus. That includes the discomfort, the uncertainty, the fear, the isolation, but it also includes the gradual increase in ability. Atmospheric games, including survival horror, work best when they can put the player in the shoes of the protagonist, and Metroid does that with every aspect of its design. Once you've played this game a couple of times, you don't feel alone, you feel powerful. Parts of it will still be tense because the game's not easy, but you've built up your experience just like Samus builds her arsenal. And that's where the Brinstar music sounds sweetest. When you're barreling through this early game area that gave you so much trouble when you started, fully powered and fully confident, whether you're sweeping through it with the screw attack or nothing but your starting weapon and the experience to wield it. This is why, contrary to what I first thought, Metroid is still worth playing today. I cleared it blind in 5.5 hours, you can do it too. No guides, no maps. A lot of the rooms do look samey. I did wonder at first if that was for the same reason that Super Mario Bros. Repeats block patterns in order to save space on the cartridge, but this started life on the Famicom Disk System, so they had plenty of memory to work with. They chose to make certain rooms look the same to enhance that feeling of uncertainty, of not knowing where you are. Like the low health when you restart, the repeating room layouts is a deliberate part of the design, and how Okada and his team used all 8 bits available to them to give you the same experience as Samus. That's why this is a unique experience, unlike any other Metroid game since, even its remake. You know what's really silly though? I first played this last week. I could have picked this up at any point in the last 3 decades, and I would have loved it. I think I've been put off by all the media and the discourse around this game telling me that it was too hard, that it was too obtuse. It's not. I found it easier to navigate than Zelda, and it's definitely on the easier end of the difficulty spectrum for a NES game. It's challenging, but it's fair. It's not just a respected prototype of an important genre that people respect for its historical significance. It's an awesome game. And not just for a NES game, this is genuinely one of the best games I've ever played. And as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm playing it again. But there's no cartridge in there. It's in my NES. What I'm saying is, don't sleep on this one. Don't waste decades of your life not playing Metroid. Don't be like Bill. And if you've never played a Metroid game, thanks for watching anyway. Here's the definitive list of the first 2D Metroid games you should play and the order in which you should play them, as decided by me. That's Metroid Zero Mission, AM2R or Samus Returns, Super Metroid, Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and then Metroid Dread. That's in story order, but with a short break to play the original. After you have the experience of the mechanics of Super Metroid to get an appreciation for how the game started, and also, as I said, to have a great time. It's also a convenient point to pause the story before Fusion starts a whole new chapter. And the Metroid Prime series is a spin-off taking place between the first 2 games, and you can play it any time. I prefer AM2R to Samus Returns, but if you want to stick to the official games, then Samus Returns is also great. But should you play Metroid 2? Well, it's a great game, but the screen crunch on it is painful. But if you're using an original Game Boy, then getting a feeling of trepidation while playing a Game Boy is a great experience, and one that I genuinely recommend. But if not, just go for one of the remakes. And if you're not at all fussed about the story and just want to play the best games in the series, still start with Zero Mission, which is just all round a great introduction to the series. But after that, you might want to go for Dread, and then maybe go back and go for Super Metroid or Metroid. Yeah, okay, why not? Here's the non-story order. Other people will say you don't need to play the original Metroid, and you don't, but you don't need to play any of them. You want to, because they're awesome games, and the first entry in the series is up there with the rest of them, and is unique in just how much it makes you feel like Samus. A game like Metroid could be made today, but Nintendo will never make another one like it. So I hope I've got you fired up to go play some Metroid. If so, stay off the maps and the guides, and more importantly, stay off the save states. That means no rewinding, Switch users. Seriously. I watched a video of someone trying Metroid for the first time, and they were just rewinding constantly and having a miserable time with it. I know it's tempting, but don't do it. I promise you will enjoy it less if you do. As far as possible, this is another one of those games you want to play like it's 1987. Not because it's the most realistic experience or true to the art or anything like that, just because it's the most fun. I made my Legend of Zelda Unplayable video after feeling a kind of emptiness after I'd played it. I'd been on original hardware with my original cartridge, but I'd followed a guide. And towards the end, my mind wasn't really engaged. But then at the start, I got so fed up with bombing everything and burning all the bushes with the blue candle that I didn't feel great playing it like that either. My ulterior motive for finally playing the original Metroid game, after I'd played all the others already over the years, was to test my theory that these exploration-focused games from the late 80s are best played as though it's the late 80s. Not blind, but not fully guided either. Something in between. That's why I streamed it, and got some spoiler-free hints from the viewers, and had the best time. Is that the game? Or is that because of the people watching the stream? It's a bit of both, but I'm also just surprised at how much I was just getting into the game and how eager I was to play it by myself after the stream. Also, the game's pretty good at sort of subtly telling you which tiles are destructible, and if you're paying attention, you'll start to notice patterns. So I reckon I could have got through it without hints. So, was I right? Honestly? I don't know. Maybe I had a great time using streaming to play it like it's 1987. Or maybe I just love the Metroid series too much. But thanks to those who came along to the stream and helped out. The stream's still available on YouTube in my live streams playlist if you want to watch it back. Thanks as ever to Ultra Muffin for supporting the channel, and if you want to join them, click that join link. If you don't want to spend money though, please do like and subscribe, and whatever you choose to do, even if it's nothing, thanks for joining me on the Retro Sofa. Be careful out there.